All right, let's dive in. Proverbs 10. We're going to unpack it
Oh,
today.
Proverbs.
It's a chapter in the book of
Right.
Proverbs, but for our purposes today, it's our source material for
Yeah.
this deep dive,
Yeah.
all about righteous living, the consequences of wickedness,
Mm-hmm.
and how to navigate the world with more wisdom than folly.
And it's fascinating about Proverbs is it really is this kind of manual for life.
Yeah,
And it's really stood the test of time.
yeah.
You think advice written thousands of years ago wouldn't really hold up today, but it's amazing how relevant it still feels.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Okay.
One of the first things that jumps out at me in Proverbs 10 is how often it contrasts the paths and outcomes of the righteous and the wicked.
Right.
It's almost like, you get to choose a path, and this is what can happen
Right.
based on your choices.
Yeah, and that reminds me of something I was reading recently about the psychology of integrity.
Okay.
And there have been studies that have shown that people who consistently act with integrity
Yeah.
tend to have higher levels of well-being and life satisfaction.
Interesting.
They also experience less stress and anxiety,
Okay.
which makes sense if you think about it.
Yeah.
Living in alignment with your values just kind of creates this sense of inner peace and stability.
So it's not just about like avoiding punishment in the afterlife or something like that. There are real world benefits
Yeah.
to being righteous.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
if we just define righteousness in like a secular sense as integrity.
Exactly. And that idea of reaping what you sow
Mm.
is like woven all throughout Proverbs 10.
Yeah.
It's not about some kind of vengeful deity.
Yeah.
It's more about these natural consequences that flow from our actions.
Mm-hmm.
Like take verse 2, for example. Ill-gotten treasures have no lasting value, but righteousness delivers from death.
Wow.
It's like saying, sure, you can gain temporary success through unethical means,
Yeah.
but ultimately it's not going to bring you lasting fulfillment or security.
Proverbs is so good at using these metaphors. Like in verse 25, when the storm has swept by, the wicked are gone, but the righteous stand firm forever. It's not literal, right?
Right.
But it's this powerful image.
It is a really powerful image.
Yeah.
And I think we can apply that storm metaphor to so many challenges we face in modern life today.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about economic downturns, political upheavals,
Mm-hmm.
even personal crises like job loss or serious illness.
Mhm.
These are all storms that test our resilience and reveal our true character.
So it's not about avoiding the storms altogether.
Right.
Because that's impossible.
That's part of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is going to throw stuff at us.
Yeah, it's more about building the inner strength and the resilience to weather those storms.
And that's where righteousness comes in.
That's where righteousness or integrity comes in.
Yeah.
And when you have that solid moral foundation,
Mm-hmm.
it's like having an anchor.
Mm.
That helps you to stay grounded amidst all the chaos.
Okay, so we've talked about the big picture consequences of righteousness versus wickedness.
Right.
Now I want to zoom in on something that Proverbs 10 seems to be
Okay.
maybe obsessed with, the power of words.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how much emphasis is placed on what we say
Yes.
and how we say it.
It's as if the writers of Proverbs understood that words have a kind of magic to them.
Yeah.
They can build up or tear down,
Mm-hmm.
create harmony or incite violence.
Mm-hmm.
It's really powerful.
And it's very specific
Yeah.
about the consequences, like
Right.
verse 11. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence.
Yes.
I mean, it's a very stark contrast.
It is, and it makes you think about the impact our words have, not just on others,
Yeah.
but also on ourselves.
Yeah.
There's a growing body of research on the power of positive self-talk.
Interesting.
It turns out that the way we talk to ourselves can literally rewire our brains.
Really?
Yeah, affecting our mood or motivation, even our physical health. Wow. It's pretty amazing.
So even back then, they seem to have this intuitive understanding of the connection between our words
Yeah.
and our well-being.
Yeah, it seems so. And they also recognize the danger of unchecked speech.
Okay.
Like verse 19 cautions us against just empty chatter.
Mm.
It says, sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongues.
Ouch.
Right.
That one's a little close to home.
It's a good reminder. Sometimes less is more.
Yeah. Especially in a world where everybody has a platform
Right, exactly.
and everybody is shouting their opinions all the time.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what to trust.
It is.
And sometimes I guess silence is the best option.
Absolutely. And it's not just about avoiding that empty chatter. It's also about choosing to speak words that are truly valuable.
Yeah.
Words that build up rather than tear down.
Right.
Like in verse 20, the tongue of the righteous is choice silver, but the heart of the wicked is of little value.
Okay, but how?
Yeah.
How do we do that today?
That's the question. How do we cultivate wise and truthful speech in a world that often rewards sensationalism and negativity?
Right.
It feels like we're drowning in this sea of opinions and hot takes.
Yes.
It's hard to know what to trust, where to even begin.
Right. Yeah, I think it starts with being mindful of the words that we're consuming ourselves.
Okay.
Are we feeding our minds with information that's accurate, nuanced, and constructive? Or are we constantly exposing ourselves to negativity, outrage, and just misinformation?
So it's like being more discerning about what we let into our mental space.
Exactly. And once we've kind of cultivated that healthy mental diet, so to speak, then we can start to focus on the quality of our own speech.
Okay.
Are we speaking with kindness, honesty, and tension? Or are we just kind of letting our emotions run wild and spewing out words that we'll later regret?
This is making me think about like digital detox.
Yes.
Stepping away from the noise of social media, the news, all of that.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Yeah.
Sometimes we just need to create space for silence and reflection in order to even hear our own inner voice.
Yeah.
And then from there, we can speak from a place of authenticity and integrity.
I'm feeling very inspired
Good.
to be more mindful of my words.
Me too.
Okay, but Proverbs 10 isn't just about the power of speech.
Right.
It's also about wisdom and folly.
Yes, absolutely.
And it really seems to make a distinction between knowledge and wisdom.
Yes, knowledge is about accumulating all those facts and information, while wisdom is about applying that knowledge to live a good and successful life.
So it's not just about being smart, it's about knowing how to use your smarts.
Exactly. And Proverbs 10 gives us some clues about what constitutes true wisdom.
Okay.
For example, verse 8 says, "The wise in heart accept commands, but a chattering fool comes to ruin."
Okay.
So humility and teachability seem to be key ingredients for wisdom.
So it's not about having all the answers.
Right.
It's about being open to learning. Yes.
From others, even if it means admitting we don't know something.
Absolutely.
I feel like a lot of people could use that lesson these days.
I agree. And speaking of learning, verse 14 highlights the importance of actively seeking knowledge.
Okay.
It says, "The wise store up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool invites ruin." And like fools are content with what they already know, while the wise are constantly hungry for more understanding.
But what does it even mean to be wise today?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we have so much information
All the time.
at our fingertips,
Yeah.
but is that the same as wisdom?
Right.
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
I think true wisdom today involves not just absorbing all this information, but filtering it, questioning it, and connecting the dots.
Yeah.
It's about developing those critical thinking skills so that we can evaluate all the information that we're exposed to and figure out what's valuable and what's not.
So, like, curating your mental library. That's a great analogy.
Yeah, not just letting any old book in there.
Right. It's about choosing carefully what's going to nourish your mind and help you grow.
Okay, I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've covered a lot.
We have.
But we've only scratched the surface.
Yes, we've only just begun.
Of what Proverbs 10 has to offer.
That's right.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Because in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring even more insights from this fascinating chapter.
Can't wait.
Including the importance of integrity, the dangers of folly, and the possibility of redemption.
It's going to be good. You know, one thing that really strikes me as we delve deeper into Proverbs 10 is just how much emphasis it places on integrity and honesty.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a thread.
It is.
It's woven throughout the entire chapter.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I'm thinking of verses like verse 9, which says, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out."
Right. And it's interesting, that idea of being found out isn't necessarily about some kind of external authority catching you.
Right.
It's more about that internal struggle that comes from living a lie.
Yeah.
Even if you manage to deceive other people,
right,
you can't escape the truth of your own actions.
It's like that saying, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off.
Yes, exactly.
Because, you know, facing our own shortcomings and really owning up to our mistakes, that can be painful.
It can be.
But ultimately, it's the path to growth and liberation.
Absolutely. And Proverbs 10 doesn't just focus on avoiding outright lies.
Right.
It also speaks to the importance of being genuine and transparent in our interactions with others. Remember verse 18?
Yeah.
Whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a warning against passive aggressiveness and the damage that it can cause in our relationships.
So it's not enough to just like bite your tongue if you're upset with someone.
Exactly.
You also need to be mindful of those more subtle ways we might express negativity or resentment.
Right, like through gossip or backhanded compliments.
Right.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Integrity is about aligning our actions with our words and living in a way that's true to our values.
Okay.
Both in public and in private.
This makes me think about how much we talk about authenticity today.
Oh, interesting.
Like this buzzword, but maybe Proverbs is getting at a deeper meaning there.
I think that's a great connection.
Yeah.
Authenticity isn't just about being real or expressing ourselves freely.
Right.
It's also about being honest and trustworthy, even when it's difficult or unpopular.
Right.
It's about living in a way that reflects our true selves.
Yeah.
Not some kind of curated version that we're presenting to the world.
And that takes a lot of courage.
It does, absolutely.
Because sometimes being authentic means risking rejection or disapproval.
It takes a willingness to be vulnerable and to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's hard.
And speaking of things that are hard, Proverbs 10 doesn't shy away from talking about the consequences of foolish choices.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty blunt about the fact that folly often leads to ruin.
Yes, it repeatedly contrasts the outcomes of wisdom and folly, highlighting the devastating effects of making those unwise decisions.
Like verse 8.
Yes.
The wise in heart accept commands, but a chattering fool comes to ruin.
Right. Wisdom involves humility, teachability, a willingness to learn from those who have more experience or insight.
It's like the opposite of folly.
Right. Folly is marked by arrogance and that refusal to listen.
And then there's verse 14, which I think we talked about a little bit earlier.
We're good.
The wise store up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool invites ruin.
Yeah, it's like fools are so busy talking that they miss out on opportunities to learn and grow.
It's funny how it seems to link folly with talking too much.
It is, isn't it?
Like, fools talk more than they think.
Yeah.
And the wise are more
thoughtful in their speech.
It makes me think about how important silence is.
Yes.
And contemplation.
Absolutely.
For wisdom.
In our fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in all the noise. And lose touch with our own inner wisdom.
It's like our minds are just bombarded. With information and stimulation.
Constantly.
And we never stop.
Yeah, we rarely have time to pause. And reflect. And really process what we're taking in.
Which is why I think things like meditation, mindfulness, even just taking a few minutes to put the phone down.
Unplug. Disconnect from technology.
Can be so valuable.
Yes. Those practices create space for us to connect with ourselves. And to cultivate that wisdom that's within us.
So we've talked about folly.
Yes.
But does Proverbs 10 offer any hope?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
For those of us who have made mistakes.
Like, is it possible to course correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's one of the things I find so encouraging about Proverbs is that it doesn't just condemn those who have strayed from the past. It offers guidance on how to get back on track.
Like in verse 17. It says, whoever heeds discipline shows the way to life, but whoever ignores correction leads others astray.
It's like saying that being open to feedback, learning from our mistakes, and making amends, those are essential for growth and transformation.
And it's interesting how it connects personal growth with the ability to help other people.
Right. Influence others in a positive way. When we're humble enough to acknowledge our shortcomings and work on ourselves, we actually become better equipped to guide and support others on their journeys.
So it's not just about fixing our own mistakes. It's also about becoming a source of wisdom and encouragement for those around us.
Exactly, because our choices have these ripple effects that influence those we interact with.
It's like that quote, be the change you wish to see in the world.
Exactly.
Right.
And I know the word discipline can sound a bit harsh
Yeah.
in our modern context,
It does.
but I think it's more about self-control
Right.
and the willingness to make difficult choices for our own good.
Yeah.
It's about delaying gratification, resisting temptations,
Right.
and prioritizing what truly matters,
Even when it's hard.
even when it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's not about punishment.
Right.
It's about making those choices that lead to long-term flourishing
Hmm.
for ourselves and for others.
And that feels very relevant today.
It does, doesn't it?
We live in this world of instant gratification
Yes.
where it's so easy
Yeah.
to just give in.
To our impulses and desires. But Proverbs reminds us that true happiness and fulfillment come from making choices that align with wisdom and virtue,
Right.
even when they require discipline and self-control.
It makes me think about the importance of having like a strong sense of purpose,
Yes.
values.
Absolutely.
When you know what you stand for, what you're working toward, it's so much easier to resist those temptations.
Right.
Stay focused on the path that leads to, a meaningful life.
And that sense of purpose doesn't have to be some grand, lofty ambition.
Right.
It can be as simple as wanting to be a good parent,
Yeah.
a kind friend,
Right.
or a responsible citizen.
Yeah. The key is to have something that guides your choices.
Yes.
Helps you prioritize.
Exactly.
What's important.
So maybe discipline
Yeah.
in this context
Yeah.
is about aligning our choices with our values,
Yes.
even when it's challenging or inconvenient.
Yeah. It's about being intentional.
Yes.
It's about how we live our lives.
And making sure that our actions are consistent with the kind of person we want to be.
Oh, okay. We've covered so much.
Yeah.
Integrity, folly, discipline, ripple effects of our choices.
That's amazing.
It's amazing how much depth is packed into these proverbs.
It truly is.
And we've only just begun to explore Proverbs 10.
There's still so much to uncover.
I'm excited for the next part.
Me too.
But for now, I think we should just take a moment, reflect on what we've learned, consider how we can apply it to our own lives.
Okay, so welcome back.
Yep.
Final part of our deep dive into Proverbs 10. We've talked about a lot: righteousness, the power of words, dangers of folly, importance of integrity. But what's the big takeaway? Like, what stands out to you the most? It's like they all point to this idea of living a life that's aligned, aligning your actions with your values, your words with your intentions. Like, when you get that right, that's where you really start to flourish.
Almost like a recipe, but instead of ingredients, it's these wisdom principles. Diligence, honesty, and like any good recipe, it's not just the steps, but like understanding why they work.
Exactly. That's what makes Proverbs 10 so practical. It's not just rules, it's like actual guidance for everyday stuff, like how you handle money, how you pick your friends, even finding that balance between work and taking care of yourself.
It's crazy how advice from so long ago can still feel so relevant.
I know, right? Makes you think some things about being human just don't change.
Right. The details might change, but the big questions, how to live well, be a good person, that's always going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Proverbs 10, it's all about choosing that path of righteousness, wisdom, integrity. But how do we actually apply that in our lives today? Like, the world is so different.
Right. That's the hard part. It's not about just following some ancient rule book. It's about making these principles your own.
So taking that old wisdom and filtering it through our own experiences, what we believe, all of that.
Exactly. It takes self-awareness, asking those tough questions. What do I value? What kind of person do I want to be?
Yeah, that makes me think of ikigai, that Japanese idea, finding your reason for being. Like what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, all of that.
I love that. And I think Proverbs 10 kind of gives you a similar framework. It's about realizing your choices matter, not just for you, but for everyone around you.
One thing that keeps coming up for me is this word righteousness.
Yeah.
It means different things to different people, especially today.
Absolutely. Proverbs 10 is coming from a specific place. But those ideas underneath, integrity, compassion, justice, those feel universal.
So it's about those common threads. What's good no matter what you believe or where you're from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that leads me to a question I think is worth thinking about. If Proverbs 10 is all about righteousness, how do different cultures define that? What's the same? What's different?
Whoa, that's a big one. It's like going beyond just the text.
It is. Because the point isn't just to understand Proverbs 10, but to think about how we want to live.
Right. That's a perfect way to put it. Well, I think that's about all the time we have for today.
Yeah.
We've explored a lot.
Yeah.
but hopefully this is just the start.
Absolutely. This is just the beginning.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep seeking that wisdom, keep asking questions, and keep trying to live a life of purpose and integrity.